I can't believe I'm in heat in the middle of school, I whispered to myself in the bathroom stall. The heat is when a werewolf is fertile and ready to find a mate. My name is Trinity Witten, and despite being a werewolf, I could never shapeshift. I look like an ordinary human, but I'm stronger and faster. I also have to deal with my heat every month. It makes my body hotter, and it's much harder to focus when my mind is full of dirty thoughts. Really? The same day of the Harvest Moon Festival? I squealed. Everyone will be able to smell it. When werewolves are in heat, they produce a very particular smell that is impossible to hide. It's very embarrassing to be in heat when you don't have a mate because everyone pays attention to you. In my pack, I am the only wolf that can't shapeshift, so no one wants to have me as a mate. I sprayed myself with a lot of perfume, trying to conceal my smell, and went back to class. In my human university, no one noticed that I was in heat. I sat beside my best friend Juniper, so looked at me with wide eyes. She was a wolf as well. "Are you in heat?" she asked. "Yeah, I hate it. I am feeling cramps already," I replied, annoyed. "What are you going to do about the festival tonight?" she wondered. "I will just take my heat suppressant medicine and use perfume," I assured her. "I am sure no one will get close enough to notice. The pack hates me." Everyone at the pack made fun of me for not being able to shapeshift. Sometimes they would even question if I was part of the pack. If it wasn't for my powerful family, I would have been kicked out a long time ago. My grandparents raised me, even if they didn't want to, because my mother had died. They ran tests on me that concluded I was a werewolf, even if I couldn't shapeshift. "Alphas can still smell the heat, even with the meds," Juniper warned. She was my one friend. "I doubt an alpha would even look at me," I laughed. "I am the broken wolf, remember?" "So what? He could still be your mate," she argued. "I don't think so," I replied. "And I think he would still reject me, even if he was my mate." Werewolves had a mate for life. It was an unbreakable bond between a couple. The Harvest Moon Festival was where people looked for mates and celebrated their unions. "You know he wouldn't be able to. His body would still crave you," Juniper explained. "You know this isn't true, Trin," Carter, Juniper's brother, told me. He was sitting next to Juniper in silence, so his voice startled me. "Actually, it is, and you know it," I told him firmly. "No man in this pack will take me as a mate." My statement made Carter go quiet, and I decided to just close my eyes and drift off to sleep. Better to dream than to face reality. No man would ever love me for the rest of my life. The first thing I noticed when I got home was that my Aunt Eve had made my favorite dinner, honey garlic pork chops. The second thing I noticed was that Grandfather was there. I hadn't noticed him at first because his car wasn't there, and the food overpowered his scent. Otherwise, I would have smelled him long before I had seen him. No matter the circumstances, Grandfather always took an opportunity to belittle me. "I see you are the same as ever, Trinity," he said coldly when I entered my house. I wish he would stop it already. I already knew I wasn't a wolf. "It's nice to see you too, Grandfather." I lied, with just the slightest hint of sarcasm in my voice. "To what do I owe the pleasure of having you visit me today?" He grimaced. Grandfather knew I was forcing myself to be polite to him. "I have come bearing warnings for the upcoming full moon gatherings," he said, "and I have prepared your attire for tomorrow's event." "That is very kind of you, Grandfather, but I already had something picked out," I told him. "Did you buy it new for this occasion?" he asked, immediately judging my choices. I forced a smile and shook my head. "No, but it is something that I have not worn before." "Then it is unacceptable," he grumbled and hit the ground with his cane. "This is too important of an event. You must have a new outfit for it in each subsequent event." Before I could even say a word in response, Grandfather cleared his throat and interrupted me. "There is still a chance you will meet your mate. You must make the best first impression possible," he growled. "For what other purpose did I spend my time and money training you? Maybe because you love me and I'm family?" I told him, sounding annoyed. "Love has nothing to do with this," he replied with a resounding scoff. This was typical behavior for Grandfather, of course, but I had expected it to end when I turned 18 and proved to be useless to him. But apparently, he was still hoping to marry me off to someone dumb enough to mate with me. Grandfather had his secretary show me the dress that I would be wearing tomorrow. It wasn't too bad, thank the goddess. It was a dark midnight blue that would complement my pale complexion nicely. It was made of silk and felt wonderful to the touch. The front was cut a little low for my taste, but from there it went up into 3 straps on either side of the bodice, over the shoulders to connect, and then fan out in the opposite directions. The straps connected to the sides of the dress, and another purely decorative set of 3 straps came out across the lower back, connecting in the middle. Altogether, the straps created an elaborate design across the back, quite fashionable. It must have been either specially made or hemmed to be perfect for my height. Compared to the other women in the pack, I was short. Like, really short. The average woman in the pack was around 5'9". Some were taller and some were shorter by only a margin of a couple of inches. I was 5 feet 5 inches tall, almost half a foot shorter than all the women. And since all the men were taller than the women, they all easily towered over me. That was another reason I was considered a freak among the pack. "It is very lovely, grandfather," I told him, which was the truth. "But you did not need to go through the trouble of getting something so obviously expensive. Weren't you supposed to leave me alone and let me live my life in peace?" I added in my head. "I most certainly had to," grandfather snapped. "Who knows what kind of monstrosity you would have chosen for tomorrow evening? We must put our best foot forward." He was, of course, slipping into his old ranting again. "Can't you ever just do something because you love me or care for me, grandfather? Is that too much to ask for?" I asked myself while consciously trying to hold back my emotions. Emotions had no effect on grandfather. I had learned that long ago. He made everyone tense, even Uncle Wesley. Nobody wanted to make him mad and get on his bad side. But once he was gone, and life was back to normal in the house, we were all able to relax. Or at least, they were. I watched the clock tick by as the dreaded gathering came closer. I was so nervous about that damned harvest moon gathering that I couldn't sleep and was awake before the sun was even up. I went for my usual morning run earlier than usual, so instead of just running the streets of the compound, I decided to run out of the gates and then into the woods. The ground there was more difficult to run on, but it also felt so invigorating. Having grown up with the forest nearby had given me a deep love for running among the trees, the dark canopy of leaves above me, the musty, earthy smell of the dirt beneath my feet. The smells of the forest were so familiar to me that I would recognize them anywhere. I was running at nearly top speed when I found a new smell in the forest, but it wasn't just any smell. It was a scent, a powerful scent, coming from an even more powerful werewolf. Something stirred, something deep inside of me. All the hairs on the back of my neck stood at attention, and all my senses went on high alert. It's like my body was simultaneously screaming a danger, and I want more at the same time. "What is this scent?" I thought to myself. My mind felt cloudy and my body felt heavy. Whoever this was, they smelled like chocolate, coffee, cinnamon, and the forest after the rain. It intrigued me to no end, but something told me that I needed to get away from it right away. I knew that whatever, or whoever it was, I should not stick around to find out. I just closed my eyes and ran as fast as possible. I ran until I couldn't run anymore. "What in the world was that?" I exclaimed the instant the scent disappeared. "What was what, dear?" Aunt Eve asked from the kitchen. She looked at me, confused. It's best I keep this a secret, I thought. I'm already an outcast. Don't want to make it worse. "Nothing, Aunt Eve," I said to her with a smile. "Should we get ready for the gathering?" After I was finished being primped and pampered by Aunt Eve and put in the dress that grandfather had brought, I was ready for the dreaded gathering. Juniper and the others were going to take me there. We headed to the northernmost road to wait for them. I desperately needed them to go to the event with me to make things better. I had lived in the compound my whole life, but even so, I had never actually been to the Alpha's house before. And judging by Juniper's response, neither had she. "This is actually exciting," she exclaimed as we drove up the long, long driveway that led up to the Alpha house. "It's not often you get to do this." At the back of the compound, there was a small road, but this road was actually a driveway. All the houses in the compound stopped before the forest started, all except for the Alpha's. The Alpha house was at the end of a 2-mile-long driveway, weaving between the tall, thick trees as the road sloped ever upward. The farther into the forest you went, the higher into the mountains you went. The Alpha house wasn't very high, but it was still impressive to see. I noticed several strings of lights strung between the trees. I was pretty sure that they had been hung just for the gathering tonight, but how was I supposed to know for certain? Whatever the reason for the lights, though, they gave off a beautiful yet eerie glow. It was strange. We had only left at 6:45, but it looked like it was full dark outside. The sun shouldn't have set that quickly, I thought to myself. As we got closer to the house, I saw that several men about my age were directing people where to go. Cedar pulled the car to a stop, and a man walked up to us. "Whom amongst you is unmated?" he asked in a solemn voice. "I am," Cedar and I both said at the same time. "What is your name?" the man asked me, ignoring Cedar. "Trinity," I told him, sounding a little confused. "Last name?" he asked me, a stern tone in his voice. What's going on? I thought to myself. After all, I was the only pack member named Trinity. "Witten," I told him, now feeling annoyed. The man jolted in surprise when he heard my name. Maybe he knows my family's legacy. "Miss Witten, you are in group number 3, the man said. "You will be having your one-on-one and group meetings with the Alpha at the gathering in 2 months' time, if he has yet to find a mate by then. Please, use this time to mingle with the other pack members." I had no idea whatsoever what he was talking about, but I nodded my head anyway. "You may go," the man said, and Cedar drove to the indicated parking space. We followed the lights further up the path. Soon, we came to a huge stone mansion. It looked like it had been there since the start of the 1900s, but had been beautifully restored and well-maintained over time. It was easily 30,000 square feet, if not more. The place was massive. I could even see a tower sticking up on the roof like it was a castle. "This is like a whole different world," I muttered to myself. Cedar nodded in agreement. The gathering was being held outside. That was fine with me. I was overwhelmed just looking at that house. Actually going inside it would be too much. There was a dance floor set up among all the dazzling lights. A beautifully decorated, yet somewhat tacky, screened tent was where all the food for the evening was being held. It was beautiful because someone had tried their best to make it look amazing, and tacky because try as you might, you just can't hide those bug screens. The gathering was apparently a buffet-style dinner, where we would all mingle and talk. Granted, the food did smell very delicious, but I just wanted to go home already. The party, as everyone around me was calling it, was just getting into full swing. Juniper was dragging me around to all her friends to introduce me. Most of them looked at me with pity. Maybe they wanted to be friends, but they knew the stink that came with my family name, and as such decided to avoid me altogether. Some even sneered at me, and one angry man asked why I had bothered showing up. I didn't even pay attention to him. I had better things to do with my life than please the pack. After the last of Juniper's introductions failed, she held me close. "I'm so sorry, Trin." "Don't worry about it, Juniper. I'm used to it by now," I told her with a reassuring smile. "That makes it worse," she babbled, almost in tears. "It's really fine," I told her as I rubbed her arm gently. "I'm going to give them a piece of my mind, and you can't stop me," she said, and hurried away. I knew it would just end in failure for me to try to associate with different pack members. I was happy just having my little friend group. It was more than I ever thought I would have. Besides, I didn't want to join the party. Everyone here hates me anyway, I wondered to myself. Not to mention Juniper would have more fun with Paul and her other friends if I wasn't around. An idea came to my head. What if I snuck out while nobody was paying attention to me? I could just stay out of everyone's way. Grandfather would never know. It was a win-win. The instant I turned around to leave, I caught a trace of that dangerous scent from earlier. Whoever that scent belonged to, he was here, and I definitely did not want to see him. I ducked under the string of lights and followed the line of trees a little further into the forest. I found a tree that looked as if it had fallen down in a storm a very long time ago. It was half buried in the forest floor, making it low enough that I could sit on it easily. Feeling confident the tree wouldn't ruin my dress, I settled in for a long wait. Unfortunately, I hadn't been there for long before the scent started to get stronger. Much, much stronger. He was coming towards me, and he was coming fast. I wanted to get away from it, and yet I couldn't move. I couldn't even feel my legs. The best thing I could hope for would be him barely missing me. Maybe he'll be too focused on something else and just leave me alone, I hoped. Besides, it's not like I have a strong scent. I'm not even a true werewolf. Suddenly, I saw his shadow in the distance. The scent grew too strong for me to ignore. He was coming straight at me. I tucked myself into a tree and tried to hide as best I could. He walked around awkwardly, almost like he was blind. He moved slower than I would normally have expected someone to. Was he following his nose? I still couldn't see his face from this distance. What I could see was that he was tall, very tall, and he was well-built, more muscular than any other male I knew, even my cousins. He turned towards my direction. Can he see me? What should I do? I thought, terrified. I was too nervous to say anything to stop him. My best bet now was to just sit there silently. He took one final step and his foot collided with the tree. I closed my eyes as he screamed. He fell forward and landed right on top of me. My face slammed into him as he pushed me back. I screamed as he pressed up against me. My body jolted with surprise and a bit of excitement. At my scream, he let out a low growl. I couldn't tell if he was mad or if he was equally surprised. I stiffened at the sound, afraid of what he would do when he saw me. He lifted himself off me, grabbed my elbow forcefully, and pulled me back up to my feet. As soon as I could see, I looked into his face. What I saw made my heart fill with fear. The man standing before me was the alpha, the leader of the entire pack. "Oh my goddess," I gasped in shock. But before he could see my face, a mercifully angelic voice called out to me. "Trin, are you out there?" It was Juniper. She was looking for me. I silently spun on my heels and ran straight toward her. I heard him growl behind me. He sounded truly angry. But why? I wondered to myself. Maybe he saw my face and got mad when he realized I was the person he was looking for. Of course he would be mad. He was the alpha and I was a nobody. Not even a true wolf. What was he going to do when he found me? What was going to happen to me? I was so scared. That's when I bumped straight into Juniper, who looked just as confused as I was shocked. "Trinity, what's wrong?" Juniper asked me. "I've got to get out of here," I told her breathlessly. "What happened?" she asked again. "What's going on with you?" I was on the verge of tears. "I don't want to talk about it. Please, just help me get out of here." "Trin, are you okay?" Cedar asked as we came running up to them. "Astro, what happened?" Paul asked me. I just shook my head. They could see the fear in my eyes and hear the tears that threatened to spill into my voice. "Let's go," Paul said, grabbing Juniper's hand. "Yeah, come on!" Cedar grabbed my arm and followed after them. We made our way to the car as quick as we could and zoomed out of the party immediately. By the time we reached my house, none of us had said a word. I could not bring myself to tell them what happened. And if the alpha were to find me and blame me for what happened, he might even banish me from the compound. I couldn't live with that. "Will you be all right?" Juniper asked me. I shrugged my shoulders in response. "When you're ready, we will all be here to listen," Paul told me. I nodded. "I want you to know that we are all here for you," Cedar added. "Thank you, guys," I muttered with a tired smile. "And I am sorry for ruining your night. You're more important than some party," Cedar promised me. "Yeah. What's a party when it comes to taking care of your friends?" Paul smiled at me. "Call me when you're ready, okay, Trin?" Juniper implored, smiling. I was nearly crying from their kindness when I got out of the car. I was scared out of my mind, but I was so glad to have such great friends. Once I stepped inside, Aunt Eve and Uncle Wesley instantly noticed my tear-stricken face. Aunt Eve's green eyes went wide in shock. "Trinity, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Uncle Wesley added, his dark brown eyes mirroring Eve's shock. "Did someone do something to you?" Aunt Eve asked. "No, nothing like that," I assured them. But the party just wasn't for me. "You look scared," Aunt Eve noted. "Dear me, you're shaking." Uncle Wesley harumphed and crossed his arms. "That looks more than just the party not being for you. Was someone cruel to you? We can lodge a complaint with the Alpha." "No!" I shouted. The two of these stumbled back at my outburst. I tried to calm down and smile. "No, there is no need to involve the Alpha. Everything is fine. Don't worry," I muttered. "Are you sure?" Uncle Wesley asked me. "I'm sure." I could feel their love for me. They cared for me so much. We heard a voice call from the door as we were talking. It was Carter, who seemed sad. "Hey, Carter, why are you home so early?" Uncle Wesley asked. "The party is over," he said, and shrugged his shoulders. The Alpha got really upset about something and ordered everyone to go home. It was the strangest thing. "Wow, I wonder what it was," Aunt Eve asked him. "No clue," Carter muttered before looking at me. "What happened to you at the party?" I I jumped at his question. Carter had always been able to tell when I was lying to him. Everyone that Juniper introduced me to was rude and mean. I pouted. They all snubbed me and made fun of me for even going to the party. It just got to be more than I can handle. Those assholes, he growled. What makes them think that they're any better than you are? They're wolves, and I'm not, I told him simply. It was the truth after all. That doesn't matter, he exclaimed in frustration. You're still part of the pack. I knew Carter would always defend me. Thank you, I mumbled to him and grabbed his hand. For what? He asked flatly. I said nothing as I threw my arms around him, hugging him tightly. He was my rock in the pack and always seemed to calm me down. Looking up at him with his dark hair that was so like my own, like our whole family's, reminded me again how much like a brother he was to me. You're being weird, he noted. He sounded annoyed, but he hugged me back nonetheless. I know, I laughed at him. I'm tired though, I'm going to get ready for bed. I trudged up the stairs to my room. The solace I felt at being in a space that was all mine was almost enough to make me feel better. Almost. But I still had no idea what the Alpha would do. It might be nothing, or I might be banished. Banishment wasn't so bad, except that meant never seeing my family again, or the few friends I had managed to make. And if that were to happen, then Grandfather truly would cut me off. I would be on my own with no way to support myself. It was a scary thought, but I would manage somehow. Lots of other people do it every day. I stripped off the dress Grandfather had given me. It had begun to make me feel disgusted, like the dress itself played a role in everything. I knew that was not true, but I couldn't think straight. Once I was out of the dress, I took a long, hot shower in my private bathroom. I stood under the steaming water until I felt the stress from the evening start to leave my body. After that, I dressed for bed in a pair of comfy baby blue fleece pajama bottoms and matching long-sleeve t-shirt. But after crawling into bed, the memories of the Alpha's growls returned. It seemed nothing was going to make this night any better. I really am doomed, I muttered to myself as tears fell down my cheek. When I woke up the next morning, I decided to skip my morning run. I didn't think it was safe considering all that had happened. I texted Juniper and asked if she had any plans for the day. I needed a distraction after all. Juniper and Paul were one of the few couples who had decided to live off the compound after they were mated. They were still in school and wanted to act young and carefree. I was basically using her as an excuse to hide away, but I didn't think she would mind. Cedar picked me up in his car since he still lived on the compound with his parents. We drove into town and met up with Juniper and Paul at the local movie theater. They didn't ask me about the night before, which made me grateful. They truly were the best. We saw a double feature, all the while stuffing ourselves with popcorn. After that, we went to the mall, and I shopped with Juniper while the guys compared their skills at the arcade. After shopping, we had a late lunch where we complained about everything we possibly could. It was nice to just vent and get the frustrations out. But I still didn't say anything about last night. We decided to go back to Juniper and Paul's place after that. Several card games, board games, movies, and a very unhealthy dinner later, I was ready to pass out on their floor. I could feel someone carrying me, and based on the scent, I could guess it was Cedar. He laid me on the couch, and someone covered me in a blanket. I instantly fell asleep. I dreamt of the terrifying Alpha, banishing me, beating me, doing goddess knows what to me. But every time I saw his face, it both terrified me and excited me. I wish my body would make up its mind. Does he scare me or excite me? Same with his scent. Is it dangerous or intoxicating? Why do I find it both? The next morning, I made my way to class and decided to skip my training so I could relax. I texted Jim and let him know that I wouldn't be there today. He texted back that he understood. When I turned my phone on to send the message, though, I saw that I had several voicemails and text messages from my family. Noah had left several of them, so had Carter and Aunt Eve. I was worrying them, and that broke my heart. I would have to explain everything to them later. Once class was over, I grabbed lunch with Juniper and the guys. They had plans in the city, and I didn't want to inconvenience them any further, so I decided to walk back to the compound. Besides, I could use the extra time to think. The walk from the restaurant back to the compound would take me around 45 minutes. From the gates up to the house, about another 30. That was if I didn't run any of it. Running would help with the pent-up frustrations, but it would get me home that much sooner. Getting home sooner meant I would have to explain things that much sooner as well. I decided to walk to the compound so I could give myself as much time as possible to think. I was only about a mile from the gate when I sensed someone running at me at full speed. It was the scent of a wolf I had never smelled before, so I knew I didn't know him. And judging by the growl coming from him, I could tell he wasn't here for a friendly chat. Oh, goddess, did the alpha send him after me? I asked myself. Before I could think too much, I spun out of his way, causing him to barrel into a tree. There was a chance this was a nomad, a rogue, someone with a vendetta against our pack. If that was the case, then he wouldn't know the forest as well as I do, I thought to myself. I turned and darted into the trees. He got to his feet quickly and followed after me. I could hear his rumbling growl behind me. He was faster than me, but I had the element of surprise on my side. He probably did not expect me to know how to defend myself. I let him get closer to me. Then I jumped to the side and used the tree as a springboard. I flipped in the air and landed a double kick right on his head. "Take that!" I screamed. There was a satisfying thud as my heels made contact and heard an even more satisfying yelp of pain. He was momentarily dazed by the blow. I took this chance to run. Seconds later, he got back up and chased after me once again. What's with this guy? I thought to myself. Is he hunting me? Am I someone's prey right now? Despite my lead, I could hear his panting breath as he came up behind me. "I'm not gonna let you get me," I mumbled under my breath. This time, I slid down onto the ground and lay flat on my back. I used the momentum of both my slide and his run to throw my feet up and push him away. He flew up and collided with the tree we were running towards. I heard him roar in frustration. "Surprised I can fight, jackass?" I grunted back at him. "Think again." The moment I turned to run away, my foot caught the roots of a tree and I almost fell down. I glanced back. He was already on his feet and chasing me. I had lost my precious lead. He caught up with me instantly and pounced on me. We rolled through the dirt and leaves. When we came to a halt, he pinned me to the ground and bared his teeth in front of my face. I was scared, more terrified than I had ever been in my life. But I wasn't about to show him that. I couldn't move my arms, but I could still move my legs. I brought my knee up, right into his belly. The wolf growled and stared into my eyes. He placed his teeth against my throat and moved in. This is it, I thought to myself as I closed my eyes. I'm about to die.